It's Harris Price from Wall Center, and today's Bodog poll question, we'll put it to J-Pat here in a second. Should the Canucks offer Quinn Hughes the captaincy? Yes or no? You can vote at Harrison Price on Twitter. Bodog, your source, free casino games, poker strategy, sports odds. And Bodog line of the day for me, Caps LAFC Wednesday in Champions League at BC Place. Caps, of course, riding high after a 5-0 win over CF Montreal. LAFC is the MLS standard these days. The draw pays at plus 270, or if you like the Caps, they're at 230. No, that's the reverse. The draw pays 230, the Caps at 270 on your Bodog line of the day. Here's J-Pat, one half of the rink-wide duo with Andrew Wadden. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm all right. I have just awoken after a Sunday slumber, 2.5 hours that none of us will get back. But, I'm doing okay.
A second period in particular, huh? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I tweeted. I've watched them all this year, and that one may have been the toughest to watch. So just the entertainment value in that second period, not a whole lot going on. But, in some ways, that's Los Angeles Kings hockey, and credit to them. I mean, that was back-to-back, the end of a 4-6 road trip through the Pacific Division. Every game matters to them right now. And Todd McClellan's got them dialed in. They know who they are and how they have to play to be successful. It's not pretty, but it is going to be fascinating to see a clash of styles if they draw the Oilers in the first round for a second straight season.
Well, and a pretty good fight going on there for the Pacific Division with three teams separated by 2 points coming down the stretch. 6 games left, 5 games left. Vegas, LA, and Edmonton still have to sort out who's better, who's best.
Well, they play each other this week. Like the Kings' next game is against the Oilers, and then they play Vegas. So there is some high-stakes hockey here as we work our way to the end of the season.
Elias Pettersson falls one short of the franchise record for points. I got to admit, I was a little surprised that Todd Bertuzzi and Peter Nedved were at the top of that list. But the streak comes to an end. How do you encapsulate the streak?
I saw a lot of people surprised at that too, and they thought, "Oh, surely those are Sedin records." But I think Henrik got to 12 and Daniel 11, so they had double-digit point streaks. But yes, Peter Nedved 30 years ago, Todd Bertuzzi now 20 years ago. It was an incredible month of March for Elias Pettersson. He didn't have a point in the first game of the month against the Minnesota Wild and then ran the table. And I don't know if all of the hockey he has played, if the streak was on his mind, he just didn't have it. I mean, the team as a whole didn't, but obviously he's the offensive engine. He leads and the rest follow, and he just did not have it on Sunday. And he's had such an incredible season, you can give him a bit of a pass, but it's unfortunate. I was hoping that he'd extend the streak and then have a chance to rewrite the record book for himself against the Seattle Kraken on Tuesday night. But Patterson had one shot on goal in the hockey game. It came late in the first period. And give the Kings credit, they got Philip Deneau out against the Patterson line. And as a whole, the Patterson line with Kuzmenko and Dakota Joshua just didn't muster much. And Philip Deneau kind of quietly goes about his business as one of the best defensive players in the National Hockey League. So, the streak was great. Pettersson, again, still is pushing 100 points. One game isn't going to derail his hopes of getting to the century mark, but it is one game that you scratch off the list, and now there's 6 to go. He still needs those 4 more points to get there. I think he will. They've got Chicago. They've got Anaheim. They've still got a game in Arizona. So there is some fodder there for Elias Pettersson, but hopefully he takes it to heart and recognizes that when he's not going the way that he has for most of the season, that, this team generally does not stand a chance to win hockey games.
And also going to need to hurry up here if he's going to get to that century mark before the home crowd, as you were talking about last week.
Yeah, they needed to lose these games 6-5, didn't they?
Like Friday's game. Game, totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the St. Louis one before that at 6-5. So, again, that's, the Kings are preparing for the playoffs. Now the Seattle Kraken are coming in here on Tuesday. These are big games for the Kraken. We'll see what the Flames' lot in life is when they return on Saturday. But, it's a pretty good chance that the Canucks are going to continue to see a handful of desperate teams. They still have one more matchup with the Kings before it goes here. So that's why I say there are some opponents where I think Pettersson can rack up the points necessary. But there's also going to be some opponents that probably try to play this lock-it-down style that doesn't lend itself to a whole lot of offense.
The injuries are still there for the Canucks, obviously. Breezeball, the latest, and we've got confirmation that Juleson and Wolanin have probably played their last games. In the case of Wolanin, there's a maybe there. But did the Canucks need the mathematical elimination to finally start to, and they're not going to sit Pettersson or anything, but to really, start to construct weaker teams here on a night-to-night basis, or is this just fate taking over here and the injuries piling up?
Yeah, I think it's probably more a little bit of the latter there. And look, Thatcher Demko's been incredible since his return. His play hasn't quite been where it was. The penalty kill has given up a goal in each of the last few games as well. And the penalty kill had made great strides, but it's taken a little bit of a step back here. So there are a number of factors. But with the injuries, it's opportunities. Akito Hirose is the latest, and I thought he acquitted himself reasonably well. He got 14 minutes of ice time, which, a lot of the forwards that play and start, they're generally in single digits. It's a little different for defensemen. It's funny because to the eye, I thought Hirose did a lot of good things. When he had the puck on his stick, it wasn't there long. He seemed to know what he wanted to do with it. He showed some escapability. The underlying numbers, though, weren't kind to him at all. Individual Corsi at 33%. The shot share was 30% for him. So spent a little too much time defending. And in that third period, the Canucks as a whole, again, they're a little surprised that there wasn't more of a push knowing about Paterson's streak and the fact that, they start the period at 2-1. They're still very much in the hockey game. And, again, maybe the magnitude of it all. I don't think that, mathematical elimination would have had any impact on the group. I mean, they've known for a long time they weren't going to the playoffs.
No, I meant the coaching staff more than
I hear you there, but I'm just trying to, it was a sluggish performance, and generally we haven't seen a lot of those under Rick Tocchet, so I'm not sure where Sunday night came from. I'm sort of inclined to give the Kings more credit than, sort of harping on the Vancouver Canucks and leave that to Rick Tocchet. I thought he had some really interesting post-game remarks about how few forecheckers he's got right now, how they've got to be a heavier hockey team next year. Roster construction is going to be fascinating, and you've got some of these guys, whether it's a Studnicka, whether it's Kravtsov when he's in the lineup and he's having trouble getting in the lineup, Aiden McDonough, great story on Friday to score his first goal. He was remarkably quiet again last night. The coach is laying it at their feet and basically saying, this is what I need from some of you guys. You have to have an impact on these games, and you're running out of time with only 6 to go. And so I'll be interested to see if there is a response and, who wants it, because there are jobs to be had, or at least a lasting impression to leave here as the season winds down. But it was pretty clear after the game that Rick Tocchet certainly saw elements of this team's game that were missing last night against the Kings.
Yeah, they're a 500 team, aren't they? Some days they look good, and some days they look downright putrid. And it's just they're a 500 team.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, and we did a lot of this last year under Bruce Boudreau too. Yes, more wins than losses under the new head coach since the coaching change, but ultimately, yes, you're right. This is pretty much a 500 club. This roster, the roster construction, the personnel that they've got, had they had a healthy Thatcher Demko all season, maybe they're bumping up against the 90-point mark and in the playoff conversation, but they are not a monster. They are not a giant in this league by any stretch. So, yes, even though they have made some strides under Rick Tocchet, I think it's still evident that there is a long way to go for the Vancouver Canucks.
And on those forecheckers, Jeff, I mean, he name checks JT Miller, Phil DiGiuseppe, and Dakota Joshua. One guy they were in pretty deep discussions with on the trade deadline with Pittsburgh. The other guy has been thought of more of a quad A player, and the third guy is a bottom 6 guy. So, boy, in terms of the type of profile of forwards that Rick Tocchet wants, Canucks don't have many of them, may have less of them after the summer that is.
Yeah, and just statistically last night, JT Miller and Dakota Joshua each credited with 6 hits. Jack Studnicka was the only other forward with more than 1. So that does tell you that there was a sort of shocking lack of engagement, if you will, for the Vancouver Canucks. And let's be honest, outside of Dakota Joshua and JT Miller, they're not a particularly heavy bunch up front. And this is why I come back to Tocchet talks about it being an interesting summer for so many of his guys, an important summer. Obviously, this is the first summer for this management group with this coaching staff, and I'd love to be a fly on the wall to know what sort of personnel Rick Tocchet will have on his wish list. We know how he played the game. We know how he likes to play the game. This guy has been drilling down since day one about winning board battles and work along the wall, but they're not a heavy team. And so, I mean, they've got some guys, I suppose, that should be able to play a heavier game, and that's where I come back to an Aiden McDonough. But I expect McDonough is going to be in the American Hockey League to start next year, unless he has this incredible summer and blows the doors off to start at training camp. I think he's destined for a year in the American Hockey League. And so, what do they go out into the market looking for? How much money do they have to play with? Remember, a guy like Ilya Mikheyev, he factors in, I would imagine, as a top six winger, but, again, not a heavy player. So, yeah, I mean, this is interesting to me because right now it's pretty clear that Rick Tocchet doesn't have necessarily the kind of lineup that he's looking for, but how much wriggle room will they have in free agency? How effective can they be in addressing some of these areas of concern? Because clearly they are an area of concern to this head coach.
What did you make of McDonough's weekend? He scores the first NHL goal on Friday, and big celebration there, and then absolutely stapled to the tune of 2 fewer minutes than anybody else last night.
Yeah, look, I'll never get old. It'll never get old watching guys score their first NHL goal. I thought that was a great moment. It was a big goal at the time. It gave the Canucks a 3-2 lead. And, that was that wild sequence on Friday where goals were just going in nonstop, plus a penalty shot opportunity. So there was a lot happening there. And I liked the play of Studnicka and Sheldon Dries to set up that goal. And then what a moment, his childhood friend. A lot of things have to happen cosmically for that to occur. Like, Jack Rathbone's up on an emergency basis. The fact that he's in the lineup at all and then on the ice when his buddy scores his first NHL goal and he's the first guy on the scene to congratulate him. Kyle Burroughs, good teammate, goes straight to the net to fish out the souvenir puck. So, yeah, I like that moment, and the fact that he had the chance to do it at home is his first game as a Vancouver Canuck at Rogers Arena. Hopefully the first of many goals for him. But as I said earlier, he was quiet. And he's a young guy that's still learning the ropes and getting an eye-opener. This would have been the best team that he had faced, his debut against the Blackhawks. And then he got into the lineup against Calgary. But this is an LA team that means business and has designs on a deep playoff run. And so, it just didn't look like his game. And he wasn't alone. But it just didn't look like his game was at the level. And as you point out, the ice time sort of would back that sentiment up.
Yeah, 7.5 minutes. Studnicka played 9.5, was the next least used forward. How about Boeser, though? 21.5 minutes. He scores. He's going to have another strong finish, isn't he, Jeff?
Well, he's already there. He's up to 17 goals now with 6 to go. Like, 20's not out of the question. Guys, that is crazy, though. Like, he has scored more goals against the LA Kings than any other team in the National Hockey League, and not by an insignificant amount. And you look at his goals, now 4 of the 17 on the season have come against the Kings. He scored in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago. He scored twice against the Kings back in November. I don't know what it is about the Los Angeles Kings, but seems to bring out the best in Brock Boeser. So he's still got one more game to go against LA. I'm sure he's looking at that and thinking, all right, chance to continue to puck goals. I like the play. He fights off Alex Edler. He's planting his flag in the ground there just off the blue paint. Rick Tocchet wants to see guys battling for ice, and I thought Brock Boeser did a pretty good job on that play. That line was going last night, where we talked about Elias Pettersson in an off night for him. Phil DiGiuseppe, the shots were 15-2 in the Canucks' favor when Phil DiGiuseppe was on the ice at even strength last night. So the Canucks had 22 shots as a team. That line, that trio combined for 10, almost half of the Canucks shots. So they were going, and it was interesting. They drew the Anze Kopitar matchup and absolutely crushed it. And yet Elias Pettersson just couldn't figure out a way to sort of unlock the mastery that Philip Deneau had on him.
I wonder if Rick Tocchet loads up for Elias Pettersson this week and just and gives him his best options on wing.
Well, I kind of expected that in the third period. I mean, they're down a goal within the game, but also this idea of the point streak, and he had to know that Pettersson wasn't at his best last night. So I kind of thought maybe the third period would be Miller, Kuzmenko, and Pettersson, or a reunion of the Lotto line, whatever the case. And then when they got the late power play, and it's a 3-1 game, it wasn't even about winning, but I just thought, pull a goaltender, go 6-on-4, for all this guy's done for you all season long, give him every opportunity, stack the deck as much as you can. They did get Thatcher Demko out late, but not while they had the power play. So I was a little surprised at that. I just kind of thought it was an opportunity for Rick Tocchet to throw Pettersson a bone. Whatever the case, scoring streak is over at 14. He'll have to start again, and the kind of player he is, I won't be the least bit surprised if we're back around having this conversation somewhere down the line of Elias Pettersson chasing the franchise record for consecutive games with a point at some point in the future.
Much was made going into the game on Friday. It's been a politically charged, hot-button issue across the National Hockey League. How do you think they handled Pride evening on Friday?
Yeah, I thought as best they could under the circumstances that they made it more about the players that were in the jerseys and everything else that went on around the game. I was there. It was a pretty good atmosphere for a Friday night. It was an eventful game, so it was entertaining. Ultimately, lots of Flames fans in attendance as well. But when it came to Kuzmenko, I thought the fact that Rick Tocchet said on Friday afternoon that everybody but Kuzmenko would wear the jersey, so the news was out there. But Kuzmenko wasn't made available before the game, and so it wasn't more about a platform for him at all. It was more about the team saying, yes, we understand that he's not going to wear the jersey. The rest of the guys are, and that's what we want to celebrate. And then after the game, he was there, through the translator or using the services of Vitaly Kravtsov as a translator. He didn't have much to say. Clearly, it was all prepared as well. But I thought it blew over fairly quickly, and I thought the Canucks, little things, instead of putting Kuzmenko in the starting lineup so that Al Murdoch had to, the big announcement of your starting lineup, and just to sort of set the tone for the night, I thought organizationally the Canucks made the right call to start another line. I think they started JT Miller's line. Kuzmenko got his first shift once the game was underway. I didn't sense any real blowback in the building to all of this, but he has stated his position on this, and we'll see how it moves forward. But I thought overall, where you look at what's happened around the National Hockey League, and there has been some egg on faces and things like that, I still think it was important to let the players that wanted to celebrate the cause and do their part, for the Canucks to move forward with it, and they did, and the warm-up jerseys looked terrific. And so rather than being Chicago or the Rangers or Minnesota and scrapping the whole warm-up idea, the Canucks moved forward and made it more about the guys that were involved than the one that wasn't.
Lastly, for me, the Bodog poll question is, Dollyball told us on Friday, don't discount Quinn Hughes as your next captain of the Vancouver Canucks. Jeff, should they offer him the captaincy?
No. I've firmly been in the Elias Pettersson's the next captain of the Vancouver Canucks camp, so I'm not going to change. I may be totally wrong on this one, but you're asking me a question. I'm going to say no. I still think that EP40 is the best player that they've got, leads by example, has had an incredible season, and in theory should have a number of incredible seasons, as should Quinn Hughes. Like, if it goes there, I'm not going to be upset. I won't object. It's ultimately their call, not mine. They don't consult me on these matters. But from the outside looking in, I still think Elias Pettersson is likely the next captain of the Vancouver Canucks.
Conceivable, though, that Elias Pettersson won't want to say yes to that question until he's got an extension?
Yep.
Sure, and I think that could very well play into those discussions. I mean, that could be a card that the Canucks play by offering it to him to try to entice him, to let him know, what they think of him and his role in the hierarchy in that locker room and all those types of things. But sure, I mean, it's not just hey, we're sowing the C on your jersey. It has to be a two-way street there. And if for whatever reason Elias Pettersson isn't comfortable with that or doesn't want that, then, again, I think Quinn Hughes has shown, and you've heard teammates talking a fair bit about it as well. I mean, both of these guys have responded. They put the letter on them at the All-Star break after the Horvat trade, and both of them have elevated their play, have played a ton. Again, Quinn Hughes over 11 minutes in the third period, bumping up against 30 minutes last night. But it certainly hasn't shown any sort of hindrance. And in fact, people were making a fair bit of the Paterson got hosed on that high sticking call on Friday night, and you saw him jaw at the officials all the way to the penalty box. In fact, from the penalty box, and again, like, did it within the realm of respect of the officials, but he looked like a guy that I thought showed some leadership in that moment. That he thought he was wrong. He wanted to let the officials know that. You're not going to win those arguments, obviously, but still, like, the weight or the burden of wearing a letter has not impeded the performance of either one of those guys.
Marvelous stuff, Jeff. Thank you for this. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll catch up on Wednesday.
All right, guys. Thank you.